Welcome back. Hello, everyone, to day 3 of HACK.ASIA Week. My name is Justin Chung, and I will be your MC today. A lot has happened over the past 2 days. In day 1, we had various speakers from Google and Microsoft to share their involvement in sustainability as well as innovation. At the same time, a lot of our participants that have been selected for HACK.ASIA has been introduced to our various businesses as well as mentors to learn and understand deeply the sustainability challenges Jardines is facing. Moving over to day 2, Microsoft and Google shared further technology enablement training sessions to our participants as well as audience to get a better sense of their solutions and how they can help. Now let's move on to day 3, where we have 2 very interesting panel discussions. And the first panel discussion is about the mindset of very young and aspiring entrepreneurs. They will walk through their journey and tell us more about that. If you are if you're more coming from a Jardines business and you want to learn about startups and their innovation, please stay tuned to our second panel discussion, where startup founders and entrepreneurs will share their collaboration with corporations like Jardines. Okay. Our first panel discussion is the journey of young entrepreneurs. Discover the stories of the young and seasoned entrepreneurs. Join us for an in-depth panel discussion and hear from young entrepreneurs on how they started their businesses, the challenges they have faced, how they overcame them, the support available for young people, how they define success, and much more. Moving on to our first speaker, his name is Alvin Chung and is the co-founder of Zinosaki, a healthcare startup that designs and develops affordable robotic products for physical rehabilitation. Alvin is recognized as Forbes 30 Under 30 Asia in 2021. Our second speaker is Natalie Chung, who is an associate at the DFI Retail Group Sustainability Team. Inspired by a polar explorer since young, Natalie also co-founded VER as an environmental social enterprise to promote sustainable local tourism and climate education. Natalie is recognized as a Generation T awardee. This panel will be moderated by Janice Wong, Senior Innovation Lead at Jardine Matheson. Thank you.
Great. So thank you so much, Justin, for the introduction. Today, we are very honored to have 2 young entrepreneurs joining us to share their stories. So in this session, we really want to give you some inspiration about the journeys of others, what they have been through as an entrepreneur, and they will share with us how they started their own venture, what they have been through, and finally, they will give you some advice for all of you here joining us, whether you are a student and innovator, or you're a startup trying to make a difference. We hope that their advice will be useful to you. So first of all, I think we should be introducing our speakers. So maybe I'll first pass the time maybe to Alvin. Would you mind introducing a bit about yourself?
Hi, thank you, Janice. Thank you for having us here. My name is Alvin Chung. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Handy Rehab. We are a Hong Kong-based R&D company. So we design and develop affordable robotics for rehabilitations. We also do distributions of medical devices as well as robot devices in Hong Kong. Our focus is mainly in the hospitals and healthcare sectors. So our customer base are mostly hospitals as well as elderly homes or non-profits clinics as well.
Great. So great to have you, Alvin. So how about Natalie? Would you mind telling us a bit about yourself as well?
Sure. Thank you for having me at HACK.ASIA panel. My name is Natalie. I'm working at DFI Retail Group as a sustainability associate. But then I founded my own environmental social enterprise, Fair Hong Kong, back in 2015 when I was in my first year of undergrad. Our organization focuses on promoting ecotourism in Hong Kong as means to mitigate climate change because we realized that aviation emissions account for a large portion of per capita carbon footprint among Hong Kong people. And we're also gradually expanded our business to climate education and training for corporates in school, hoping to influence more people to take active climate action and also brainstorm decarbonization solutions for our planet.
Thank you so much, Natalie. So I think from their introduction, they're very humble. Actually, I think their venture has actually got a lot of recognitions externally. So I think it's indeed very honored to have both of you joining us today. So I guess like for you guys, you might wonder why we actually invited them, right? So they're actually working in spaces maybe not exactly related to the challenge statement that you're gonna be solving for, but there's actually some commonalities when it comes to how do you really apply business and technology to actually address some of the sustainability challenges or to create social impact. So really want to use like 2 examples of something not related to you to give you some inspiration to hoping that to empower you with, I guess, the right mindset and the right skill set to actually launch your own venture. So maybe I think we should start from like day 0. So we want to go back to where you guys actually started. So I mean, all of us here actually might have many different ideas, right? And then for many of us, we actually did not start a business, or if we start a business, we might pivoted many different times. But I guess it's always important to think back into day 1 where we, I guess, think about the idea and how everything started. So Alvin, can you tell us more about how did you get involved in your current startup when it first began?
I first began about almost 5 years ago when I met my partner, who is a biomedical engineer. We started this project, this company, or this product because we want to help those in need. So for myself, there's a personal story behind it. One of my family members, an uncle of mine, he got a stroke about 15 years ago. And since then, he has been living in our rehab center. And he lost mobility of half of his side, so he can barely walk, and he lost. He simply cannot work since then. He was only 30-something years old when he got a stroke, so that impacted me a lot. And when I met my partner, who is also in the field of R&D of this kind of technologies, we naturally came together, and we want to build something for stroke patients to help them regain mobilities and regain control of their hands.
That's actually very interesting. So it's also something that, like, you know, there's a big problem here, but it might be something you started because you see it happening to someone around you, and that's something very personal to you. And I guess that's also why you're still working on it after so many years as well. So how about you, Natalie? How did you first started your own venture?
Right.
What really inspired you in like part of the process? Because I mean, like I know that you have been very passionate about topics related to climate change. I know that you care a lot about that. But what was really the inspiration, I guess, at that point in time?
So I actually started FAIR at a similar setting like HACK.ASIA. When I was in my first year of undergrad, I joined a competition called the COP21 Challenge, organized by the French consulate, because that was right before the COP21 Paris Agreement conference. And at that session, we listened to a talk that walked through about aviation emissions in the world and in Hong Kong. And I realized that these emissions is usually not accounted for in government reports because of double counting and its transboundary nature, compared with other apparent environmental issues such as electricity consumption or water wastage. I think aviation emission is relatively not visible to the public, so I wish to promote carbon literacy of the public on this aspect. And even before then, I was usually traveling abroad quite frequently with my parents, and I did not know about aviation emission as an important source of emissions myself. So I think maybe we could start an online platform that promotes this idea and also compare attractions in Hong Kong with like famous attractions elsewhere, like in Japan or in Korea. So people can gain the touristic motivation to travel around Hong Kong and also gain deeper understanding into our biodiversity and ecological diversity. Then we gradually pivoted to offline tours because we realized there is a demand for it. People not only want to consume these kind of touristic information, they also want actual tours that they can participate in and to learn from what we are to advocate or educate for.
So that's actually also very interesting that you mentioned. I guess like you see like a much bigger problem that is happening, and you're thinking about specifically, I guess, the aviation industry and perhaps your role to play in helping to make a difference as well. So I think that is very interesting. Another point of view on how you started is like quite contrasting. Like one is very personal, one is the bigger picture, but eventually like you are getting to, I guess, the impact side of things as well. So that's great. So I think that's how you guys started, but I also want to kind of move like a little bit ahead in time. How did, like, what is actually the, like, now you had the idea that at that point in time, like, what was actually the first thing you built? Like, what is that about? How did that came about? Like, from the idea to, I guess, the initial venture. Maybe, Alvin, can you share about, like, maybe your first product, how, or what really that is? Yeah.
I think back to before what the first thing that we built is that what the first thing that I did. So I care about the root cause of problems and the user feedback. So when I joined with my partners, he already have something on hand. It's like a prototype. I have a lot of wires, cables, electronic components, like all exposed together. Not very sexy at all, but it's functional. So we stop there, and then we go out and reach out to individual stroke patients, as well as like professional therapists or doctors, ask for their advice, ask for their like real user feedbacks, because they are the persons that's gonna pay for that equipment at last. So the first thing we did is actually going out, ask for their advice, and trying to grab hold on what the market, what the patients really want from these products. And from there, we did a lot of iterations. We built a lot of things, and some didn't work, we put it away, and then some worked that we keep moving on and improving it. And that's how we get to this point, I think.
So what did you discover through the conversation? What worked and what does not? Is it exactly the same as what you imagine people's feedback would be, or is it completely different?
It's not exactly as I was expecting, or we were expected, or we designed in the first place. Because as engineers ourselves, myself is not an engineer. I have a business background, so engineers always like try to overkill problems, or try to solve problems that might not exist, right? For like commercial sales, they try to like sell what you have right now. Sometimes they're overpromise some things, right? So our job as an entrepreneur is actually there to be the bridge between R&D as well as commercializations. Try to bridge the gap between that and bring the two parties closer together to one point that we can compromise on functionality, cost, as well as the selling price of each product. And I think one of the parts that I can, so one of the products, the first products, the flagship product we built is a robotic glove that goes on the hand of stroke patients. We designed it like a human hand palms. So at the beginning, we figured that we should have like different components on different fingers, or same as what our hand should look like. But at the end, we took out one part of the pinky palm of the glove, because we realized that it's actually they don't really need that part of the products.
Unless you want to do a pinky swear, right?
Yes, exactly. Or the use of the actual medical term is that the rehabilitation use of the pinky is actually very limited. So and the use of it is very private. So you don't need to spend that much time or that much effort into rehabilitating the pinky, and that would actually and adding that extra component, it actually causes more and causing more reliability issues or other technical issues on the product. So we decided to take it out even after we have built it already. So that's one of the parts that we didn't realize until we actually push our product out to the market and let people to try use on it.
I think that's actually a very good advice for the HACK.ASIA participant as well. So it's really about not just like have an idea and go straight to build it, right? It's really about maybe taking a step back, really understanding the need of the users. Who are you trying to build the solution for? And kind of pivot from there, right? Like your first design and your last design possibly is very different as well. It's like a constant iteration process that you have been through.
Exactly.
Cool. So maybe Natalie as well. So I think you already touched on your pivot, but I guess when you first started, it's only a online platform that you have built, right? Can you tell us about what actually is the first thing you built and how, I guess, it eventually evolved to what it is right now, which is an online plus an offline kind of components of your venture?
Right. So we initially started as a website, a digital platform, because we wanted to showcase some of the attractions in Hong Kong that are comparable to elsewhere. And we even showcase how much carbon emission you can save by staying in Hong Kong rather than going to somewhere overseas to see the similar kind of geological features or ecological features. But then we realized a problem is that most people and most of our judges at social enterprise competition love traveling. And they really hate this kind of guilt trapping. You're telling them because you're going elsewhere, you're generating this much emission. And we also realized there are some natural assets in Hong Kong that are not found elsewhere. Why not we just promote the intrinsic beauty of Hong Kong to the public, not to guilt trip them, but to attract them to stay locally by showcasing them how cool a local tour can be, and rebranding this concept of local tourism as a climate tour or environmental education tour to appeal to different audiences like young families, schools, and younger children. So we decided to take another approach of just showing how pretty or how valuable Hong Kong attractions are, instead of telling people you shouldn't travel elsewhere, because we think that should come at a later stage. When the uptake of local tourism increases, then naturally maybe like overseas tourism will decrease. And we also try to track our impact by giving out evaluation forms after our tours and pre and post intervention, looking at the social impact this tour has brought and trying to develop mechanisms to evaluate the exact amount of, the exact educational effect that we're able to achieve. But then we still found it quite difficult to track how much emissions we've reduced because of our tour, because oftentimes it's a long-term behavioral change rather than going on one tour, then you can automatically switch to sticking to local tour. I mean, COVID has done its effect on dragging all people to stay locally, so our model has also switched a bit after COVID. But then I think it's important to keep in mind to all entrepreneurs out there how you evaluate your impact and how to best approach your audience in a way that they feel comfortable with it.
So it's actually quite interesting. Can you tell us more about like when you first built, I guess the first thing, which is I guess the online elements of that, telling people like how much carbon footprint you are creating as a result of your traveling, right? I'm sure that a lot of people actually wouldn't know about that. Like that was
wouldn't want to know, right?
Yes, actually, as someone who's very passionate about traveling around the world, I actually do not want to know as well. So like, how do people first perceive that? I mean, like some people might be very supportive, right? Like it's like a wake-up call for them. But you were saying some people were like kind of like not really buying into the idea. Like from your conversation with people, how did they feel about the first idea that you got?
I think it was half-half. Like half of the people are receptive of what we're doing and kind of like recognize that they need some sort of behavior change. And all along we were just promoting to reduce the amount of tours every year, because we have done some market research among university students, and we found out the average tours they go on every year is around 4 to 6. So some people actually go on like 10 plus tours every year, and some tours are just for like 2-3 days over long weekend. So we think by reducing these kind of flash tours, you can already significantly reduce your carbon footprint, because, for example, one round trip from Hong Kong to Japan is around 0.5 tons of carbon emissions, and annual carbon emission per capita for Hong Kong people is around 6 tons. So you can see that going to Japan for 10 times already doubles your annual emissions. By reducing one time, it's already like almost 10% of reduction. So we try to pitch this idea more, but still it infuriates some of the population who really enjoys traveling. And I think it's also important to keep in mind that 80% of all flights, for example, in the UK, is only made by 20% of the population. So we're talking about a very privileged population that are not aware of the problem, but they are creating most of the problem. So we wish people could take initiative and like understand the greater perspective of this, but then we also recognize using the guilt approach is not the best. Maybe instilling some hope, instilling empowerment, empowering what they can do about it. Or, for example, we did some policy advocacy around carbon offsetting, setting tighter regulations around carbon offsets in the world and in Hong Kong, so that people who really needs to travel, like there's a necessity, then they can opt for those options as well. So we did some collaboration with university on this kind of research.
That's very interesting. So before I go back to Alvin, one last question. So you actually challenged the orthodoxy that traveling has to be you from one place to another place abroad, flying from one spot to the other. You're challenging that and you're saying that, well, hey, you can travel locally. The experience can still be really cool. I think a lot of people, especially, I guess, for a certain group of us, it's very hard for us to kind of believe that. But I guess COVID also changed people's perception as well. So did you see like some of the macro forces like COVID accelerating perhaps the change of people's perception towards certain ideas, especially your venture maybe?
Yeah, totally. I remember there was a paper about the necessity of traveling and like whether we really need it. It's an academic research, and it shows that most of the tours that perceive to be needed is actually not that needed when people are drilled to answer deeper questions. I think COVID is a wake-up call for everyone, especially for business travels, whether there's the necessity of doing so. And I heard from IKEA that they actually stopped over 80-90% of the overseas travel, but they can still operate normally and even better in some of the cases. So I think this is important for a realization that we can also try to strike the balance between local tourism and overseas tourism. And at the same time, we see a lot of untapped potential in tourism around the world, especially in restorative and ecotourism, because now we're looking into a more regenerative economy rather than extractive. As we see from COVID, it was like nature's revenge. We were trying to extract too much and think in a linear way instead of a circular way. So we see some overseas resort projects. They are actually built around a narrative of restoring the habitat, like by gaining the capital to build a resort that facilitates the government to gain enough capital to rebuild a forest or improve biodiversity of that spot. So I think these concepts can also be integrated back in the Hong Kong's picture, especially when the government is pushing hard on rural conservation and rural revitalization. So these are potentials that we can tap in, as well as the rise of virtual tourism with AR and VR elements that VAIR is also exploring. And we did several virtual tours with schools earlier this year, and their feedback were quite positive. And we saw greater revenue as well because it's less labor intensive. We can use similar online materials to replicate it to our different clients. So we will keep on expanding this arm.
So it's very interesting to see how you pivot from, I guess, a website to the offline elements and now exploring maybe how technology, VR, AR, how does that redefine travel? So it's really interesting. So I want to go back to Alvin because I know, Alvin, you started your journey quite a few years ago. So I guess we talk about your first product and I guess how you pivot your first product of the kind of like the arm. Like how about like since then, how have you kind of ventured to different areas? Did you bring new products? Did you expand your company's offerings? Do you go more back into R&D? So how did you pivot your venture after you got your first product?
Yeah, we. In the simplest sense, we simply go expand more horizontally, as well as we want to go deeper into our field. Horizontal-wise, we try to expand our business more overseas, but with COVID, we stopping all the travels as well as some of the overseas trading as well. So we're trying to expand more deeper in Hong Kong right now. So on one hand, we have our R&D arm where we design and develop more products where we can push it to the market as well. The other hand is that we develop our own distribution and sales network, at least locally right here in Hong Kong. So we have our salespersons as well as BD persons going out to hospitals and different elderly homes on a daily basis, where we can get a more and more direct customer touch point, as well as in a commercial sense is grasping more revenue in terms down the value chain of that. So and I think that's quite healthy for our company because on one hand we can generate sustainable income that keeps our team growing. On the other hand, is that we can help our engineers to find out problems, because a lot of time when our customers, we build trust between us and the customers, they will come to us with their real life problems. So, for example, this hospital, they're doing a renovation projects. They want to renovate the whole rehab sectors, and they will come to us and ask for our opinions, like what kind of things that they should put it into their rehab centers or their hospitals as well. And that is the problems that we want trying to solve or we want to find for every entrepreneur. So that is real gold for us. And that keeps us going, and that keeps our both their sales work and the engineering work interesting and more dynamic.
So actually that's very interesting because you started with, I guess, understanding needs and you build your first product. And I guess for you as you scale it, you mentioned, well, the product is great, but in order for you to become more sustainable, I guess as a business model, you actually go down the value chain as well. So are there challenges going that route? Because there might be an area that you are less familiar with, right? So when it comes to scaling your business, how did that happen? How did you find an experience in that particular part of the journey?
Yeah. There are indeed a lot of challenges. I think it requires different skill sets in terms of our teams capacities, and also like we have to wear different hats. It cannot be the product designer or the project manager all the time. I have to go out and do sales pitches, and sometimes pitch to clients that I've never met, or I don't know what they want really at all. And also on the other hand, we have to go to source products that might be useful for our customers. So that one thing is like the requirement of different skill sets. And I think for like our fellow entrepreneurs as well is that I think it comes to my personality as well, because I don't like stop doing one thing and keep doing one thing over again and again. So for me, one of the signs that I take is that when I realize that I keep doing certain things on a daily basis or for a period of like 2 or 3 months of time, that's a sign that I should hire someone to do that job for me, so that I can move on and I can bring the company to another level.
So that's very interesting, good advice as well. So I think it's very interesting to talk about the challenges, I guess, resource constraints, and also matching with your strength, right? What you are really good at and what you can bring to, I guess, the venture, and how you can leverage other people's strengths and capabilities for other parts, so that I guess your team collectively can actually scale up quite quick. So that's actually very important advice, I guess, for the HACK.ASIA participant as well. So I also want to talk to Natalie as well, because you have many pivot, that all the ideas seems cool. I would actually personally love to try one of your product and travel experience. But I'm also thinking it might not be that easy to start your venture and pivot it and scale it, right? So from your experience, what are the challenges that you face as part of the journey?
I think one of the greatest challenges is the lack of certification system in Hong Kong around ecotourism. So we're essentially competing with a lot of other organizations that might not have the accreditation for doing similar things at a much cheaper price, because they get subsidies or they get buy-ins from people who don't really care about environmental component of it, but they get sold by the name. So I think it's like an uneven battle to begin with. So we had to understand very deeply what are our competitors, and even like we understand that they're not doing the same thing, but they're still in our same market. And we need to differentiate us by identifying rightly which is our audience that we wish to target, and how do we match with their values. For example, one of the target groups we are targeting now is secondary school teachers. We realized that secondary school has a huge demand for these field trips and field experiences, eco tours. But then a lot of the times teachers are just sourcing it from big names, organizations, and traditional green groups. So we try to stand out by adding more innovative elements into our tours and hiring in different university students as part-times who can help us curate our tour from design thinking perspective. We also try to source more ideas from our interns, because we're hiring actual secondary school students who are users of these programs. So they're closest to the syllabus, and they remember clearly like what are the focus area of the tours and how to share that knowledge in a fun way that will appeal to their peers. So we think youth empowerment is a core component of our success by understanding users' experience and using the whole empathy ideation process to develop our tour products. And we also keep doing that, iterating that process, so to keep up to date with latest educational trends.
Great, thanks, Natalie. So now I actually want to pivot our discussion a little bit, because we talk a lot about the ventures that you guys have built, how you start from like day 0 to I guess where you guys are now. Like it's like constant pivot process. Actually, we want to talk more about maybe yourself, your journey as well, because oftentimes when we hear about the stories of startup, we hear about maybe their successes as a company, but as an individual entrepreneurs, right? I'm sure that there's a lot that you guys have gone through as well. And I guess for a lot of the aspiring entrepreneurs and entrepreneur, like your sharing might be quite useful to help them understand better what they should be expecting if they take on the journey of starting to build something that is really meaningful and hopefully is something of impact, right, that venture. So I want to ask maybe 2 questions, is like from your personal experience perspective, like what has been, I guess, like the most rewarding experience when you are doing your venture? And I guess what is the most, I guess, memorable, difficult experience that you guys have been through?
Do you want?
And those are very personal and tough questions to
Yeah, that's
answer.
very deep.
Yeah, it's very deep.
Yeah, I think one of the most rewarding moment is that I always share these stories. At one time, I think around 2 years ago, when we were exhibiting our products in exhibitions in just HACC, there was an old lady. She's in her age of 60s, I think. She got pushed over to our booth by her husband on a wheelchair, and she got a stroke a couple of years ago, and her right hand couldn't move. She came to try on our product. I helped her put it on, and I helped her to move her fingers again. And the first reaction she had was that she turned around and looked over the shoulder and tell her husband that she wants to buy this. And I mean, and she had a smile on her face. That was very, very rewarding. It's very, very warm. That we know that we're on the right track. We're doing something that can help someone. And so that is the moment that I got. I think it's most rewarding in the past 5 years of my times doing here. And and we're talking about challenges. I think we face challenge every day, and they're like very different. And it could be from like someone losing their shipments, or some customers that get delivered, or angry customers, or angry suppliers, whatever it could be. But I think a lot of the problems, a lot of the most challenging things comes back to itself as always about people. You have to find the right partners to help you go through the journey. You have to hire the right talents in different stage of your company. And nowadays, it's very difficult to recruit, even like for startups like us. And I heard from my fellow startups or fellow companies as well. It's very difficult to find good talents. And in terms of like when you try to expand your company, you have to work with different vendors, and they are people behind it, and you have to find investors, and it's just about relationship building, and it's always about people skills. So I think one of the challenge always comes back to the people and how you work with the people who can solve the problems. I always tell my team one thing is that don't dream that we can make the perfect products or we can solve every problem ourselves. But there's someone out there, or you who have a friend who has a friend who can solve the problem for you. So instead of just trying to dig in and do it yourself and come back to like no results at all, why don't you just reach out to find more friends and know more people who can solve the problem for you? So yeah, that would be one of the lessons that I learned around these years.
It's actually very interesting, because what you're saying is the most rewarding experience is actually about people, like the smile you put on one individual. It's very interesting. It's not about like the success of the venture in terms of how big that is, but it's really starting from one individual, and hopefully more individuals can be impacted the same way. But also the challenges is about, I guess, also like you can't do everything alone, right? And there are many different people you work with, and how do you really bring together? So it's very interesting common traits that I'm hearing from your sharing. Yeah. How about you, Natalie? So how about, from your experience, what is the most rewarding elements? And I guess also the same question, like what are the challenges you face and how you really overcome that as an individual?
I guess I don't have any stories that can top Alvin's. That's super
Maybe
touching.
the story can be me, like introduce that to me. I really enjoy traveling, and I just start traveling locally a lot more, maybe.
Thank you. I guess one rewarding episode would be during one of our Long Fushan Eco Tour, a peak next to Hong Kong U. There was one lady, like middle-aged lady, who reached the peak and talked to and said to us that, thank you for bringing me up there, because I never knew Hong Kong has such beautiful scenery, and I never knew I have the capability to walk uphill, because she's not a big like sporty person, so she's never really tried to go up to a top of a mountain, especially when it looks difficult. And sometimes I think it is this power. This is this component of empowerment that we're able to tell people that they actually have the capability to travel around, to adventure, and to start their own journey, even in Hong Kong, even if they have some physical disabilities, they can still take an initiative. We've also done an initiative with Wheelpower Challenge to assess a route around southern Hong Kong Island that is barrier-free, like has access-free facilities along the way. So we saw that even people who are disabled want this opportunity to travel around Hong Kong, because it's even harder for them to travel overseas. So there's this natural need for them to go around, but it is hard to explore like restaurants that are friendly to the disabled people. So I think these are some rewarding moments during our journey. While for challenges, I'd say the biggest challenge I face personally is because, unlike Alvin's startup, we are a fully part-time organization. So all of our members, we have around 30 of them. They're mostly university students, and we remunerate them on a project basis. So whenever we have a tour, we draw on a pool of freelance tour guides, which have been trained by us previously. We run on this model because it is actually quite difficult for local tourism business to be financially sustainable given the variability of tours, and especially now during COVID. So one challenge is to maintain that freelance pool of tour guides and how to train them with our up-to-date syllabuses and standards in order that each of our tour delivers similar quality. And because it's a huge pool of people, we need to draw on different people at different time slots. So sometimes we might need to turn down requests from corporates or schools, and we're not able to reach that kind of maximum educational impact. But still, I think it allows us to be more flexible, and it inspires me how to manage people in a way that it's not only the monetary return that draws them in the pool, but the brand and the morale of the organization, that they feel proud to deliver a tour and feel proud to see the smiles they put on our audience's faces after the tours. So I guess it's like a continuous self-reflection on how to hold our members together to continue delivering more high-quality educational events.
That's actually like interesting story, because I was trying to compare maybe like the experience of Alvin and Natalie. So Alvin, you're really all in, right? Like once you graduated, you have been working at that startup. And I remember I met you in some social innovation events before. Well, it's so tough. And then like 2-3 years later, you're still there, right? So it's like really into that. But Natalie's approach is like, of course, you are still very passionate and supportive, but you're also thinking also like the power of other people as well, right? Engaging the tourist guides like as a on needed basis. It doesn't have to be all full time. So I'm going to get you guys' perspective as well. For a lot of the people, maybe I guess hearing this speech, they are thinking of, I have an idea, I have a venture. Do I really go full time building it, or can I build it alone, perhaps with I guess my main job, or maybe I'm a student, build it aside, alongside, I guess, my study. So what's your advice when it comes to, I guess, venture building? What is your approach? I mean, different people will have different experience and, I guess, advices, but from you guys' perspective, any thoughts around that?
Honestly, I think startup or building venture is not for everyone. It's like people are stood for different jobs, or they are not. They can't do that, or they're better doing something else. And I don't think that, like, I think for a lot of startups or young early stage founders, I would actually tell them to take a step back, pause it, and think about that if you are really actually the best person to do it or not. Or you can find vendors, or you can find suppliers, or find a freelancer who can solve the problem for you. Or there are some people or some companies out there trying to solve that problem already. If you can't distinguish yourself or do better than them, don't. Or simply join them and have them be bigger things. Because I think a single product company doesn't work. It's you have to be able to provide an all-round solution, service, operations, as well as how to deliver your products to your customers. So that would be actually my advice. Don't do it right now. Just think about it first before you actually go to do it. And that would be the advice I would give myself like 5 years ago as well. Not that I was wrong, but I think that would be a very difficult thing to say to everyone. Because I mean, like if I look back, like no one ever told me not to do what I am doing today. but that's actually some very brutally honest advice that someone could give me or some, and because like for some of our products that we went out, we got some good feedbacks and some like bad feedbacks, 50-50s. Like down the road, no one told us that we should not do that because, but we have to evaluate as ourselves. Like at the end of the day, we learned it by real life. We learned it from real life is that if we come back and sit down, stop developing that, and just do the math and calculate it, and it doesn't make sense. It is a big investment to solve a small problem, and it will generate a very, very small return, even for in the long term. So, but no one will tell you down the road. And because in Hong Kong, we have sort of supporting communities, and everyone just, oh, that's a good idea, you should do it, blah, 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 as well. But I tell you not, no. Just you can be honest to yourself is one of the biggest lessons that I learned.
So that's actually very interesting because I was thinking for HACK.ASIA participant, like maybe like when you meet your mentors, when you meet your judges, they might be very supportive and think your idea is great. But I guess it's also like a constant self-reflection process, what you can do differently as well. So I think we have some questions around. So I will just wrap up perhaps with each of you may be giving 2 or 3 advices to the HACK.ASIA participant, regardless whether they are student and innovator, having an idea, wanting to build something up, or they are already like a social, kind of like a startup trying to solve sustainability challenges. Maybe just wrap up with maybe 2 things that you would give them as an advice.
I would quote from Antonio Guterres, UN Secretary General, at the end of COP26, the climate conference. He said, the path of progress is not always linear. There are detours, but it is our fight for the climate. It is a fight for ourselves, so we must continue to fight on. I think this year's theme is Innovate the Sustainable Future, which is something that is core at Jardines and also at a lot of our BUs. We're really looking for solutions that can help us build a more sustainable operations, supply chain. And so I hope that if you do have an idea, please feel free to pursue it and to really understand deep users' experience and users' problem and try to address it. But keep in mind that it might not be an instant success. You might need to take more detours in order to get to the final goal. But sustainability is something that we should always work on and not to finish the fight because you feel hopeless.
Like Greek, hold on. Okay, so Alvin, last comment from you.
I think be passionate about what you do, as well as be patient, because really, like Natalie said, things don't change across overnight. For like a real example for us is that for medical or healthcare industries, the sales cycle is very, very long. You have to be very persistent and be patient and trust that and know that you're doing the right thing. Otherwise, you can't survive for over a year.
So we have some questions. I know I've been asking a lot of questions. So I think the audience also actually got some questions for our 2 very successful young entrepreneurs here. So maybe we can have the first question.
Hi there, thanks. There's 2 questions on the line here. Maybe each panelist can take one each. So the first question is, are there any particular skills or qualities that you think as a student you should equip ourselves with to become an entrepreneur? That's the first question. And the second question is, do you have any tips on how to build a team with the right motivation, especially in the initial days of the startup, and also who to avoid at that stage? So 2 different types of questions. Maybe we can decide who will take which one.
I guess I can do the students one because I did the first one, like qualities of students. Sorry. Yeah, so speaking of qualities that you look for in an entrepreneur for students, I think the first thing is time management, because when you're still a student, you have a lot of other priorities to balance, especially your academic career. So how are you going to dedicate time and attention to your startup, and then to think of scaling it up so that it become your full-time career? And another thing is networking. I think networking is especially important when you are still a student, because probably the immediate circles, social circles around you are not the people who might help your startup to a very large extent. You might need to reach out to people who are working in the government, who knows a bit about the policy background of the issue you're addressing, or you need to know people who are already building a successful similar startup. For us at FAIR, we started reaching out to some large green groups in Hong Kong to understand how the green group charity model works and how we can differentiate from them by being a social enterprise that is focused on environmental issue. So I think is to be brave enough to reach out to these wider networks so that they can help you connect the dots. And I think when you're in a student community, you're not afraid to fail, and people tend to be more supportive of your idea. So don't worry that people will not respond, because usually they're very supportive of you, and you need to leverage on these few years as a student, using your brand name as a student to reach out to different people so that you're harmless to them. And you can also secretly build a very resilient organization.
That's great sharing. So like, Alvin, you're gonna take the second question.
That's a quite long
Who to
one,
get,
right?
who not to get.
Good to avoid.
I think it really depends on what kind of business or company you're trying to build. It could be very skills oriented, or it could be a general company that doesn't require a lot of technical skills. It varies. It depends on your business nature. You as the founder should be able to know that what kind of persons you're trying to look for at what stage of the company, either as a business guy or either as a software developer or a product designer. You should be the one who knows what kind of resources that you lack of at which point. I wouldn't tell you who to avoid, because I think everyone is like a book. You can learn something even from the worst person that you know around you. It could be a bad example that you don't want to do or don't want to go down that path with. But I think I generally just try to look for genuine friends that I can make, people who doesn't lie to you, and people just speak of the truth and tell you if they can do it, if they can deliver it. That's one kind of person that you might be careful of, is those over-promisers. I wouldn't say that they lie to you. Some salesperson, they can sell to some companies about that, what they can do in the future. If they can deliver it, that's not a lie, all right? If they can't deliver it, that's a lie. So make a difference. Spot the difference and be careful of those over-promisers.
That's interesting. Maybe I'll just wrap up with the last question, because I think there was a question about how do you keep people motivated? Because I think from our conversation, there are a lot of great success that you guys achieved, but the journey is very tough as well when it comes to social innovation, when it comes to sustainability. So any advice on keeping yourself and the team motivated, as well as the HACK.ASIA participant? I know you guys are working really hard now. What are some of your last words on that part?
Progress, I think. People like to see progress, and they want to see when they can get rewarded. That might not be financially rewarded, it could be other things. And one example is that if you make an 8-hour-long movie, no one would watch it. If you make 8 episodes of 1-hour series, people usually finish it.
That's how Netflix works, right?
Exactly, in one day or two, right? So people like to see progress and split it up by bits. And as a founder myself, I try to split up the task in terms of progress so that they can see what they have actually built and what they have gone to at which point.
Natalie, any final words on the motivation part? How do you keep yourself motivated, and perhaps kind of advice for our participants as well?
Yeah, I think one thing is goal alignment, aligning with the team periodically. What is our eventual goal? For example, it's mitigating climate change or helping people adapt to the transition. By establishing these goals and checking in with your team regularly, I think it's very useful to keep the team together.
Okay, that's great. Actually, I think we have one more questions from the floor. So maybe we can use that as a wrap up before we finally close. I think there are more questions, so I think we are possibly out of time already. So I guess thank you so much, Alvin and Natalie, for coming here today. So for people on the line from HACK.ASIA, we hope that their journey actually inspire you when it comes to being an entrepreneur, right? What you're actually going through. And I hope Alvin's and Natalie's experience will be useful to you. We know that we are all solving different sustainability challenges, and all our ventures, all our ideas actually take on a different path, but always get connected with people from different backgrounds, learn from them, and hopefully there can be some collaboration between many people together as well. So I think with that in mind, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll actually have another section, so I'll pass back the time to Justin. Yeah.
Thank you, Alvin and Natalie, for really sharing your entrepreneurial experience in your respective ventures. We have two gift cards for you so you can enjoy our Mandarin Oriental experience, and Abby will provide it to you here.
You guys can enjoy the experience locally, I guess.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you, Janice.
much.
Okay, so thank you so much.
Do we need a photo? Or?
It's okay.
Okay. Yeah, so please stay tuned to 5 p.m. as we have another panel discussion about startup collaboration with corporations, and that will be moderated by Anne O'Riordan. Thank you. Welcome back to day 3 of Hack Asia Week. Now we will move on to our second panel discussion on the road to corporate startup collaboration. Join us to dispel some myths about the rise of corporate startup collaboration. In this session, we will discuss about the corporate startup collaboration from a startup's perspective. Learn from our startup community as they share insights about what corporations and startups should expect from their partnerships on innovation projects, and how we can raise the odds of lasting mutual benefits when large and small companies team up. For our first speaker, we have Brandon Ng, who is the co-founder and CEO of HACK.ASIA, a company driven by its vision of creating emission-free future for construction. HACK.ASIA powered the use of energy storage upstream is with its rare product, the Entertainer. Crystal is the co-founder of CEO of Pickup, a logistics startup aiming to reduce logistics and empower businesses to scale with transparent customer-centric service and technology. And lastly, we have Peter Chan, which is the head of growth at Rare Elements, an alternative data financial intelligence solution with core technology in multi-language, native natural language processing, and machine learning. Rare Elements is a winner of Hack Asia 2020. This session will be moderated by Anne O'Riordan, who is the Jardines Matheson Group Director of Digital. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Justin, and welcome to everybody. We're very, very excited to have a fantastic panel here with us today. Hopefully for all of you who are online, this is a chance to see and ask people who have really been there, done that, and been in the startup community, probably even way back into their student dreams, dreamt of being entrepreneurs, and have made it happen. What I want to get out of this session is the real questions, which are, what was it really like working with corporates, and what would you say, what works well, what doesn't work well. So all of you who are online, if you have questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, and we'll get to them as we go along. But I want to start with these 3 incredible entrepreneurs, and just a brief. I know Justin did a great job introducing you, but I think our people probably are fascinated about who you are and how you got to where you are. So if you wouldn't mind just giving just a very brief overview of the company, just the name and whatever else, but more about you. How did you start? Where did you start? Where were you even 10 years ago, and how did you get to where you are today? So I'm going to start with Crystal, if that's okay. Ladies first.
Hi, everyone. It's really a pleasure and honor to be here. So maybe I will start with introducing Pickup, and then I'll talk about a little bit of why Pickup and how it got started. So Pickup is an asset-light logistic tech platform. We focus a lot on the data and optimization technology. We currently run in Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, and Taiwan. What we focus on is to serve enterprise, SMEs, and also consumer clients, help them optimize logistics. And what we do is to connect fragmented parts of the supply chain resources, whether it is crowdsourcing a driver, a walker, or even space in the city, just to do temporary storages. We connect all these resources together and try to optimize cost and without sacrificing the speed, so that we give a better experience. A little bit of background about myself. I was a software engineer by training, a short stint in investment banking before embarking my entrepreneur career. I was in a fintech company, and then I went back to Hong Kong in 2014. I joined Uber. I was an early employee enabling the platform and also managing the ecosystem. I realized a lot of people are using the wrong product for logistics. It's very expensive, it's point to point, it's not efficient. So that's how I started Pickup in 2017 with a goal to optimize and make sure we can cost control, we can make it more efficient, we can also utilize a lot more of these freelancing or even idle resources to make logistics a bit more sustainable.
Excellent. Well done. Fantastic. Okay, Brandon, how about you? What's your story?
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for having me today. So my name is Brandon. I'm one of the founders of HACK.ASIA. HACK.ASIA exists to electrify the construction industry in pursuit of our vision of an emission-free future for construction. And the reason why I think everyone should care about this is because construction contributes to 11% of global carbon emissions.
Amazing.
Absolutely massive. And we haven't really, the world hasn't really done a lot to decarbonize construction over the past sort of past decades. So we saw a potential to do that, and that's kind of what we focus on. As a company today, we operate in Hong Kong and Singapore, and we are now starting to expand internationally as well. So how I ended up starting down this journey was, I'm trained and educated as an engineer, and I had a short stint in banking as well. It's not a requisite, by the way. It's not a requirement to get into what we do. And I realized that I was really actually missing that connection to having a positive impact in society, as an engineer. And I really wanted to find a way back into engineering, and I saw entrepreneurship as a way to do that. And we started Amped Energy because we saw that energy storage, big batteries, this is in the early 2010s, were going to be transformative for how we use energy globally. But when we started the company, we didn't know what problems we were going to address. We didn't know what products we were going to make, which customers we were going to serve, how we're going to build a business around this. It was all to be figured out, but we started the company nonetheless. So not knowing where you're going is a perfectly normal starting point for starting a company.
That's quite amazing. We have to come back to that. It sounds like madness, but I'm fascinated to find out. Okay, Peter, what about you?
Awesome. Thank you both of the amazing introductions. So hello, everybody. I'm Peter. So a bit about Rare Elements. So it was started in about 2019 with a team of 4 people, which we met during our stint at Microsoft. We ended up in different places and realized that there's just so much data out there. And there's also a lot of tools out there, but there's not too many insights. Whether it is in the financial industry or it is in the retail industry, there may be a lot of complex dashboards, complex solutions, but there's not anything that is really simple, intuitive, and impactful. And that's why we wanted to create something from the perspective from the industry. And with that, we have introduced 2 products, one in the financial services industry and one in the retail industry, focusing on leveraging technology to help predict trends in order to optimize performances in the respective industry. I'm happily to go into that a little bit more later. A bit about myself. So I actually started got to know my passion in technology by working with Crystal at Uber during 2014, and then as my internship, and gradually moved on to Microsoft and Facebook internationally. Ultimately, I landed in private equity, which coincidentally is also in the financial services industry, working on venture development. At that point, I got into a lot of opportunities to work with both the corporate side and a lot of the technology players. So we've been fascinated by the passion that entrepreneurs have. So once I had that opportunity, we decided to start something.
Fantastic. All right, so I see a trend here, right? So you have to be sort of an engineer or a techie in some sort of way. You have to do a stint in banking, and maybe that's only because you're all from Hong Kong. But then you move on to really finding an area, a niche that you're all passionate about, which I love. I absolutely love the fact that you did this because you spotted something in the market and said, it shouldn't work this way. Let's find a better solution. All right, so now, which of you has the oldest company? I think you were 2015.
We've been around since 2015.
2017? And you are 2018? When did Rare Elements start?
We started in 2019.
2019. All right, we'll go to the earliest then. All right, Brandon, take me back to 2015. What happened? Did you move into the science park? How did you get to where you are? How did it happen?
So we just started with a thesis that was energy storage was going to be transformative, and we felt like we could play a role in this. And like I said, we really, typical clueless entrepreneurs, didn't know what we didn't know. But that naivety, I would say, was, because I think if we knew how difficult it was, we probably wouldn't have done it. We started off in the science park here in Hong Kong, which gave us sort of a soft landing into this universe. And we tried a couple of things in the early years of the business. So we tried building batteries for hospitals, for data centers, for telecommunications. But the business just wasn't scaling and growing as we had hoped. An Excel model will always show incredible growth when you just put the right numbers in there. So don't be fooled by it. what happened at the end of 2017 was I was at a conference not too dissimilar from this, and I actually ran into one of the executives from Gammon Construction, a company under Jardines. And he, I was pitching at the event, and he was at the event, and he simply, at the end of the event, just asked over a conversation whether we thought it was possible to power up an entire construction project, not with diesel, which is noisy, polluting, expensive. Diesel equipment requires a lot of maintenance. It tends to catch fire from time to time. There's a lot of issues with diesel. And he said, could we use big batteries to power up our construction projects instead? At that point in time, we had no idea if we could, but we said we'd take a look. So all through 2017, 2018, we spent a lot of time with Gammon really trying to figure out how we could use batteries in some way, shape, or form to power up a construction project. And toward the end of 2018, lots of back and forth thing. We realized not only was it possible, we realized that the economics made a lot of sense. It addressed a lot of the operational issues that you have with the use of diesel equipment in construction. And at that point in time, no one was really trying to do this anywhere in the world, not in the way that we were trying to do, at least. So Gammon engaged us to build the first entertainers. That's the name of the product, Energy Container Entertainer. It started off as a joke, and it kind of stuck. So that's why it's called an entertainer. Someone thought they were being funny. And we said, give us a year, and we'd get it delivered to you. This end of 2019, we'd get it delivered to you at the end of 2019, August 2019, we said. It took us a little bit longer than we had anticipated, but Gammon understood this was new, this was pioneering. So we actually ended up delivering the very first entertainer to Gammon in October 2019. And we didn't know if it was going to work, because no one had done this anywhere in the world.
That's amazing.
And it worked brilliantly. And I guess the rest is history.
Yeah, fantastic, fantastic story. And we'll come back to your story with Gammon later as to how did that work, etc. But truly, just great. A series of determination, happenstance, creativity, and determination.
Luck.
Sounds like a lot of determination, though. Yes. All right, now Crystal, you're next. Take us back to, I don't know, were you sitting at a desk in Uber saying, I just don't want this to work like this?
It was end of 2016 when I noticed a lot of, I won't say abuse, but people just use car rides for different purposes. So sending flowers, sending packages, doing all sorts of things, and paying a hefty premium on it. And then we already know there are other platforms out there, and the prices is 2x, 3x of what a traditional courier would charge. So we started thinking about why is there such a big gap? Little traditional players, they're doing centralized handling, like milk runs, everything going back to a warehouse and redistributed. And then we start thinking well, are there any leeway we can do it dynamically or more on demand? Or can we keep shortening the delivery time? Is there a way to do that? So I realized there's no product market fit if I had stayed in Uber and tried to use that product to get that kind of marketplace going. So that's how Pickup started. And we experimented it in the very beginning, saying that, okay, let's say it's not like a next day delivery. It's also not a 1 hour delivery. What if we say it's a 4 hours delivery in the middle, but it's a fraction of the price? So are people willing to pay a little bit more for a quicker turnaround? And that's how we started experimenting the optimization of time and cost with different types of vehicles and warehouses. So we find traction, and I think it's running pretty well in Hong Kong. So that's how we started thinking about, the next high density city that we can experiment in, which is Singapore. And then that's how we embarked this journey of opening different cities in Asia.
So the keys that are different are, one, your algorithms do optimization point to point. Is that correct?
We do not handle everything point to point. So we run a hybrid to the extent we can, understanding the time required. We break up different legs of these parcels, and then we find crowdsourced spaces in the city to temporary warehouse them for like half an hour or to an hour so that they can run another batching algorithm so that one person is handling not just one order, but we can try to batch them with 3 or 4 to be delivered in a neighborhood. So it's definitely more efficient, not just in terms of the throughput, but also in terms of earnings to the person who's delivering. Because if you don't want to raise the prices, but you also want to make sure this person is earning enough, so that means you need to make sure he or she is taking on enough orders and being able to do it very quickly in the neighborhood.
And you crowdsource the drop-off points. So what's this like? You have a spare bedroom in your house, and what happens? How does this happen?
Yeah, we started working with some small places in the industrial area. They allow people to do self pickup of orders, and then we started working with coffee shop where they have spare locker rooms, and then we also started working with 7-Eleven, so they have multiple drop-offs. We also started working with some other logistics companies. We share warehouses, so all sorts of partnership, like we'll strike and we'll try to get it up and running. The goal here is really to give people enough options, because the more points you have, the more efficient or the shorter the last mile it would be.
Absolutely. And what percentage of your orders are delivered by people walking versus people driving? Or
It's a very big percentage of people walking in Hong Kong. You'll be amazed. We have 80% walkers.
amazing, amazing. So it's sustainable as well.
Sustainable and also, no carbon emission, I would say is the best way of delivering when your neighbors or someone you know is actually handling parcels in that neighborhood.
Absolutely. Because somebody cares, which is fantastic. Great story. I mean, just great the way you have applied logic to each point of the problem and said it doesn't have to work the way we've all been traditionally brought up to know that logistics works, or thought we knew. Fantastic story. Okay, Peter, over to you.
Awesome. So Rare Elements was started in 2019 and now evolved into having 2 products, both focused on alternative data, which are data that don't find in traditional sources such as Bloomberg, Reuters. Examples can be geospatial data, satellite data, or social media data. And our 2 products, one focusing on financial services, which is analyzing these data to help predict the performances, the movements of cryptocurrency and NFTs. On our retail product, we scrape social media data in order to predict retail trends, look at emerging brands, and analyzing the potential benefits that these brands can bring across different perspectives. Kind of where it started was very similar, where it started with a problem and some pain points that we all personally have. When I was working at Facebook, I was working with a lot of Facebook marketing partners and kind of connecting these solutions with different companies, but a lot of the feedback often is this solution is too complex. It's a lot of visual driven elements. It can be very fancy graphs, but does it really impact the business that I'm currently looking at? So for example, let's say if you are looking for emerging brands, do you really need a list of 1,000 brands without a lot of analysis, or do you need a recommendation of 10 brands where you have much deeper depth of analysis? So we kind of started from there, and we tried our hands on applying this technology across different industries, with financial services, with I think more on the marketing space, even on the operations space with preventive maintenance as well. And we kind of took the approach of, we don't know too much, so let's take on some projects and see what sticks. And ultimately, it was these 2 products that really, really stuck. And we continue to grow the team. And currently, we have presence across myself personally, be based in Germany, and a team member based in the UK, and of course, a core team in Hong Kong as well. So it has been an incredible journey, and continuously to iterate with this product. And as you can imagine, we're in the financial services and retail space. We work with a lot of big companies and conglomerates. So it was also a very, very exciting experience to start from the beginning, actually.
Fantastic. So remind me, Peter, you know, how many employees are there now, and how many customers do you have?
Currently, we are having about 5 to 6 of our team members with different freelancers helping out as well. In terms of customers, we have a range of, more of our SMB customers, but we also have quite a few bigger corporate customers, which we focuses on kind of really embedding our solutions across different of the departments or coverage. Imagine a capital markets team using our solution in terms of in our Scandium solution, which is our financial services solution. We can be applying it for different capital markets team across financial products, across geographies, and this is kind of how we are approaching with our bigger corporates clients.
Awesome. Okay, similar question for you guys now. What stage are you at? How many people do you have? What stage are you at in your evolution?
Okay. We now have 150 people across 5 cities. We recently finished our Series B financing where Jardines led the round. So we're extremely privileged that we're now in full execution mode to deepen our presence in Asia. And what we're trying to do is really to build up more of these spaces, careers, and make sure that we can engage with more and more enterprise clients just to get this quick commerce and omni-channel retailing going.
Right, amazing. So your 150 people includes your walkers and your...
Oh, that doesn't include all the freelancers and all the companies who signed up with us. Right now, we serve about 24,000 merchants and over 100,000 freelancers.
Wow.
Yep, and then I think we run over 200 of these satellites across the cities. That means there will be 1 or 2 in your neighborhood, but we don't have signboards and stuff, so people probably don't see it. And even our walkers, they don't run around with our shirts.
Right.
Sometimes they choose to be discreet. Yeah.
Interesting. So of your 150 people, how many are technology people?
About 40 of them.
Okay.
Yeah, it's still, we will hope, for this percentage to go up a little bit. But in terms of engineering talent, it's been pretty competitive, I would say.
Yeah, the market's hot at the moment, for sure. And Brendan, how about you? Shape and size now and stage?
We're about 48. We're about 48 people. We are 48 people right now. We just raised our Series A just a little under 6 months ago, which was led by 2 VCs in the prop tech, and they invest in the intersection between prop T technology and sustainability. We currently operate across Hong Kong and Singapore, and today Amped Energy powers up over 70 construction projects right now, with 30 construction companies or property developers all over Hong Kong and Singapore. The bulk of our business today exists in Hong Kong, but Singapore just started going live about 4 months ago, and we're hoping for very exciting things in Hong Kong and also in Singapore through this year, and also in a few other markets as well toward the tail end of 2022.
It's just a great story. It's great. All of you have amazing stories in such a short period of time. Now, I want to come back to you started in the science park, and I just want to hear from you. How did that help? Did it help? I mean, I just spoke to the CEO at the Science Park last week, and he seemed to have almost 1,000 startups in there now, which is phenomenal growth in the last number of years. So just talk to us about that experience. Was that a great place to start? How did it work?
I think you have to look for... So for us, it was. So for us, it gave us... We were new to Hong Kong. I'm not from Hong Kong, so I was new to Hong Kong, and having the Science Park as a soft landing into the Hong Kong ecosystem, I benefited from that tremendously, because that gave us, a launch pad to jump off from. But there are companies for whom the Science Park works brilliantly, and there are companies that the Science Park may not necessarily make so much sense for you. And you have to look at what type of a company you are. The Science Park tends to look for companies that have a heavy engineering or science content. Yeah. Typically, they produce something physical, not always, but typically. there's some physical thing at the end, be that a drug or a product, or a technology of some kind, and there are expectations that you're going to be investing in that. So if you are a e-commerce company, maybe the science park might not be the right place for you. Maybe it might be. You have to look at your individual circumstances. So just look at your company.
Right. And you were there for 3 years?
We were there for 3 years as an incubatee, and I think we were there for another 2 years on top of that as a tenant.
Okay.
Oh, 3 years on top of that as a tenant as well.
Wow. Amazing. And again, Crystal, where did you start? Did you just...
We started, well, I had angel investors and myself putting in some money to pick up. We were also pretty lucky to be one of the incubatees at Cyberport, even though we didn't work, well, we did not have an office there. It was too remote for a logistics company, unfortunately. But they did provide other types of support. So for example, if you, some investors introduction, or trying to cross-refer you to other startups, or even if you want to work with enterprises, like they will try to find like key decision makers and then make an introduction for you. So I think it's been pretty helpful for us just to speed up the conversion cycle and also speed up the fundraising activities as well.
Yeah, interesting. It's interesting to understand what kind of help you need. And of course, you're different. If you're producing a product, you do need an engineering environment. You might even need some laboratories and all of that. And having that so that you don't have to pay for all of that equipment up front is super helpful. Peter, your experience, like where did you guys physically start? I mean, you now are between Germany and France, so how did this all work?
So I actually only recently moved to Europe about half a year ago, but we all started in Hong Kong, and we are also a part of the Cyberport incubation program. Kind of echoing what Crystal said, I think on top of that, the ecosystem is incredibly helpful. We're in a data field, and a big part of our product is fintech. It's a very competitive and fast market. So other than kind of on the client side, the startup ecosystem is a very good way for you to scale your product and bring your product much quicker to the market, rather than developing certain solutions in-house. Strategic partnerships with some of the other players across the Cyberport ecosystem is a great way just to go to market when you're also still kind of testing out some of your features. So that has been incredibly helpful. We're actually about to finish our incubation with them, and we are currently raising our seed funding, which is very, very exciting.
Very wonderful, wonderful. All right, so now different points at which you all kind of got to interact with Jardines. So Peter, I'm going to start with you because you were a HACK.ASIA winner, and I know again we've got a lot of people in the audience today. They're participating in this hackathon. Talk us through it all, because it must have felt a bit weird to have a series of corporates come out and say, we want your help to solve this problem and we're serious about it. Can you come in and have a chat with us? Can we give you these mentors? Can we help you through the process? Now, the one you did was a 36-hour straight-up marathon, so it was intense, as I recall, and people sleeping overnight in one of the Hong Kong land facilities in Central. But talk to us about that and what it felt like, and then what happened afterwards when you won. So first of all, why did you participate? Then, as you went through the process, what did it feel like? And then what happened afterwards?
Definitely. I think it's very clear the goal of joining HACK.ASIA is very rare to have such an opportunity to work with corporations where has so much coverage across industries and have such, in some way, such a warm introductions of your solution to a wide spectrum of departments and even people outside of Jardines as well. So the exposure and the potential to work with Jardines are definitely the top two reasons. It was an intense competition. We did not sleep at the facility because we can't do it anymore. The age doesn't allow it anymore. But it was really good. And following the competition, we begin the process of really scoping the problem, defining the problem here. A lot of the key questions that you get during Hack Asia are often much simplified for competition reasons. So when we approached of working with the team, we really worked on refining the scope of the question and the details of the question. The questions that we got is how do we incorporate external customer insight to help make decisions to improve retail performances. So scoping meaning that what potential retail projects can we start on? What markets of customer do we firstly want to look at? What platforms do you guys would like to prioritize? So really understanding the problem and talking to different stakeholders, whether it is decision makers or funding individuals, innovations teams, operators, mapping out the stakeholders, and we really got a solid start as to how we should approach it. And then we started a POC and ultimately converted into Jardines, Hong Kong line converted into a customers of ours.
That's amazing, and yeah, I think that's what it takes is a couple of iterations, right, to get to what are we actually trying to solve for here. Now, I think the rest of you also had similar experiences. Brandon, we know you guys met at a conference, but yeah, talk us through the following year where you trolled all over construction sites in Hong Kong trying to figure out how this thing worked. Because you didn't do batteries for construction prior to this. You had done them for hospitals and various other places, right? So you had to learn the construction industry.
That's correct. I don't come from the world of construction, so we kind of stumbled into it, if anything. So like you mentioned, I met one of the executives from Gammon Construction at a conference, not too dissimilar from this type of a conference, and I think what that gave us was an opportunity to engage. It gave us an opportunity to engage with Gammon, Jardines, through a champion, someone that believed in an idea, and because I don't come from a world of construction, we had to learn about construction. So all through 2018, pretty much the entire year, we spent a lot of time with Gammon at pretty much all their construction projects that they had at that point in time, trying to understand power and energy in the context of construction. And we felt that if we understood it, we could at least we could figure out if it was possible to create a product or not. Maybe it wasn't, right? And that was perfectly fine. We would have learned a thing or two about construction. But maybe it was possible. You don't know until you actually try. So what we had was an opportunity to try. And we took that opportunity. And through that year, we realized, like I mentioned, we realized pretty much at the end of that year, it was in fact possible to power up construction with these great big batteries, the size of a shipping container, and that it would actually lead to substantial benefits for Gammon initially, but it turned out actually for the wider construction industry as well, here in Hong Kong and Singapore. So so at the end of 2019, just as we were delivering the very first entertainer for Gammon, we decided to pivot. A very common term that you'll hear in a startup company. We decided to pivot. We decided to drop everything that we were doing prior to this product. So we stopped everything on the hospitals, on the data centers, on the telco side, and we decided to go all in on construction and focus on. And we changed our vision. Our vision changed into let's try to create an emission-free future for construction. That's kind of our North Star that tells us what we need to do and who we need to be working with and what we need to create.
It's just fantastic. I mean, it's true innovation. You really didn't know whether this thing was going to work or not. I just think it's an amazing story. And now you actually power these massive cranes. I've seen it in action myself, and your optimization of the electricity utilization is truly astounding. I've always wondered, how did you design for things like, snakes and things going into your machine?
Have small holes.
Yes, but yeah, I mean, truly, because you're really out there in the elements.
In the middle of a construction site where rocks fly, stuff falls, cement gets flung across everywhere. That is the environment that we operate in. But I find that incredibly exciting.
Oh, yeah.
I love it.
It's amazing because it's almost every parameter you can possibly think of can and will happen. So
100%.
Great. All right, Crystal. from your perspective, your interaction. It's been a recent interaction with Jardines, so.
Yes. We started. We started thinking about doing food deliveries, I think in the early 2019, and then we had the privilege to work with some food deliveries, just doing some quick service restaurants, and then we start seeing, hey, the average distance traveled is so short, and then we start thinking about, oh, can you imagine, just among the management, we're like, can you imagine if not just the quick service restaurants, all this, but what if groceries? What if other daily necessities? Like if it's all under the Jardines umbrella, what if they are all on the same platform? Can you imagine how much density or how much throughput it would generate? And I think it was a coincidence. It was 2020. It was COVID, and then I was just talking to someone about this micro fulfillment strategy and high density deliveries, and then they were like, oh, maybe you should talk to Jardines. I think they are very serious about some of these digital innovation and making a move. So I was not that confident back then. In the first meeting, I was of the assumptions that it may take a very, very long time. But I was quite surprised from the first meeting to having a POC. I still remember the first time when I talked to them, like, oh, how much time do we need for an API integration? We've had experiences with other enterprises where it would take 6 months. So we were not that optimistic, but it was done in 2 months. So I was so surprised, and things just start rolling and kicking in immediately, even so much, so fast, even to our surprise that, oh my God, do we have enough manpower handling this? Because this is massive. So I think it has been a very, it's an exciting ride. I would say like a roller coaster ride. Of course, not all the time smooth, because when we work with larger companies, there are a lot of decision makers and stakeholders, so there's a lot more communications involved. But I think what's more rewarding is that because we are really solving problems, we're communicating, so it's not so much on a consumer-driven marketplace that, okay, just throw promo codes and discount codes, make sure everyone comes in free ride, and then next day they're off on some other platform. So I think we identify difficult challenges, operational problems, and we're really solving it. That makes the thing more rewarding than ever.
Fantastic story, really. Yeah, it probably was right place, right time, with the right solution. Everybody had a need, so we needed to get on with it. I have lots more questions, but I just want to check, Justin, are there questions coming in from the floor? Okay, let's give the audience a couple of.
Hi. Okay, cool. We have some questions from the audience. The first question is for all the panelists: what is your greatest security challenge? What does security mean for you? Is it in data? Is it in, what is security? What's your greatest security challenge?
Crystal's going to start.
I'll go first. So I think when it comes to logistics and us running a platform, there are 2 layers of security. There's the cybersecurity, meaning whether someone can hack the system, which I believe is not the biggest problem, because we've been we run everything on cloud and things are pretty much encrypted. The security of packages is something that we have a very close eye on, because we are still leveraging on freelancers. So we do have real-time tracking, POD, people take photos. We ask them to take a photo with the door number, e-signature, and if someone is not taking the parcel, can you identify who's taking care of it? Is it like a door guard, or is it like a receptionist? So I think this level of security is the one that we keep a very close eye on. We even have like a channel to spot check the security by taking a certain percentage of photos and just eyeball it whether something looks off, which serves to be pretty interesting data analytics as well. Like for the past week when we're eyeballing these photos, we see a lot of tissue paper and rice deliveries. So apparently, I think Hong Kong is stocking up.
Again.
Yeah, but these are things that we do take precaution and just to make sure, like, we don't have a lost package. Yeah.
We have so many questions. Maybe we'll do one question and maybe one of the panelists can pick it up. So we have a question here from David Walker. How do you balance being as innovative and creative as possible with staying focused on key goals? So maybe if one panelist wants to take that question.
I 100% believe in focus, and that is why we decided to pivot and focus entirely on construction. We dropped everything that we were doing because it's for us, it was, we as entrepreneurs, we couldn't resist jumping on a big problem. And, I say construction contributes to 11% of the world's emissions. That's one heck of a problem. And we saw a path to making an impact and making a dent in that. So once we kind of landed on this, we knew that this could take us far. Just focusing on this one thing, and so we at this point in time, we're really focused on construction. There are the problem with the industry that we're in is there are more opportunities in energy storage than a single company could possibly fulfill.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a question of not what you say yes to, but what you actually say no to.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to be able to say no to a lot of things, but yes to one thing that you truly believe in and truly can get behind and truly, dedicate the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, who knows, right, of your life to. And you got to be okay with that.
I just actually want to quickly jump in here. I think Brandon raised a great point about mentality, but I think I come from a more practical perspective where in order to make sure that you're really ruthlessly prioritizing, we found OKRs and KPI structures very, very important. There can be a lot of problems that you can be solving, but you need to solve the single most important problem. And a big part of that is mentality, but you need to make sure that your company's goals and the things that you're tracking are linked to that problem that you're actually solving at. So you cannot be, let's say if onboarding flow is the biggest problem, your OKRs cannot be generating leads. So making sure that the company's organizational structure and how the goaling of each team member is aligned to the mentality, I personally find very, very important and very helpful as well.
And we have a similar question from Ankit, who wants to know, how do you define the point when which you need to stop pushing and change your strategy in a startup setting?
That's a good question.
Sounds like it's for me.
Go ahead, Brandon.
Look, the business that we were trying to build prior to actually running into construction just wasn't scaling and wasn't growing. And you know it, right? Like when you have product market fit, and you know when you don't, right? When it's a hard sell, and no matter how hard, whatever kind of resources you're trying to pour into marketing and selling, it's just not. It doesn't solve a problem. It doesn't resonate strong enough with people that they go, I need that. Whereas when you have the right product market fit, it's you've got the right product market fit because people are coming to you for that solution, and they're lining up and they're queuing for that solution. So. It's to a certain extent just going out there, trying a whole lot of things, trying that thing again and again and again, and seeing if there's a positive response or if there isn't one. And if there isn't one, there's nothing wrong with failing, right? Fail fast, make sure you do so quickly, and then move on to the next thing.
I'm curious, I just want to build on that question though, and this is more learning for us as well, is when we, Peter, for example, can give you access to the mentors, can give you access to the people who are hashing the problem, does that cut down the time? Does that help you to focus in?
Actually, this is it's what a great question. It's actually, it can increase the scope of the problem, and it makes it even more complex, and it will be actually up to the core team for you to decide on what exactly is the first solution that you need to tackle. So I think Brandon mentioned a lot about customer discovery, which I think a lot of entrepreneurs do miss out on. They focus on their vision, but across the process, they really didn't talk to potential customers and ecosystem players to understand that. For example, we're working with Jardines, the topic of analyzing YouTube videos and TikTok came up. And because we brought in operators and we went through the process of kind of exploring that solution, but stepping back, if you look at it, is that really a platform that you want to prioritize? What exactly is the objective of adding this platform as an analysis? How much resources do we need? How much, of that POC do we need to push back in order to incorporate this? So sometimes it can be very helpful in terms of nailing down the what exactly is the problem, but sometimes it can also be increasing the scope of problem because more people are involved, they have different KPIs, they want to see more things, they want to see more innovative things. So it really depends on the solution, but ultimately it is you as the company that you need to focus on what exactly is the business impact that your problem will help address, and that make that the one guiding principle that you use in order to make decisions.
Great.
Sure, thank you. And we have a few questions here, which I'll put together around the culture and the agility and kind of the mindset and spirit. Could you share a bit about, how did that kind of entrepreneur spirit translate into the work or the kind of the team or the operations, and how that might be something that our entrepreneurs can learn from?
Oh, for me. Okay. So we do have 9 core values or a certain culture within Pickup. I'm not going to list all of them, but I think what we focus a lot on is the team spirit, where people work together, and we are we're very particular when we recruit engineers or even people in operations. We want them to have the curiosity. Whether it is just personal growth or career growth, they need to understand why and ask these questions. And then the third thing is that because we operate in such a competitive market, logistics is super competitive, so they need to have the grit and be okay with this David versus Goliath moment, like every single day. So I think these are things that we take it very seriously, but we also tell people we want them to have fun. So when they come to the office, no one tells them what to do. And so that's why if you're not someone who asks questions, or you're not someone who will ask why and figure things out, you will be in trouble. You'll be sitting at a desk and not knowing what to do, except for layers and layers of onboarding videos and trainings. So I think these are things that when you're in a startup, you definitely feel the difference versus working in a large corporate, like these kind of cultural values.
Hiring. I mean, you just got to be real. You got to make sure you're hiring correctly. My view. And we take at AMP we take a very different approach to hiring. We're not just looking for people that have a certain experience and then that's it, right? I mean, that would be a very traditional way of hiring. Yes, you bring in the experience. That's important, but maybe you don't, but you're willing to learn and you're really passionate about what we do as a company. That could also put you in a very strong position. I mean, we have 5 values in this company, and one of them that is passionate. We're looking for people that are really passionate. So even if you don't have the perfect experience, but you're really passionate, you're a quick learner, you're going out there and you're trying to figure out ways to overcome. That's what would put you. What makes you very attractive to us. And that, for me, is key. At the end of the day, you're not going to be able to build this company by yourself. So hiring the right people that are aligned in terms of their values, in terms of the vision, in terms of their attitude to solving the problem, that's really important.
Fantastic.
One quick little blurb I would like to add is, one little tip is also, don't over-focus on the values that a lot of companies can potentially glorify. Is kind of one take that I will have, especially having worked with so many big American tech companies. Find the culture that really fits for your team, and oftentimes that starts with your initial core team. As you can see, for example, the remote first culture is really, really big now. Does that really make sense for your team, or certain policies or certain things? really make sure that this is truly something that fits within their industry, within your company, and it's something that people like. Some people do like more structured guidance rather than something very, very open-ended, and depends on different seniorities as well. So try to understand what exactly is fits for you, and don't be kind of blinded by all of these kind of fancy or cultures or values out there that other companies adopt. I think it's a very, very important thing to remember.
Fantastic.
I think we can take one more question. We've got a question here from Julia, who wants to know, under the fast-paced startup in Hong Kong City, how do you manage life balance under startup life and your real life?
Do you have a kid? I have a kid.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
So I got an 8-month-old kid, right? So I really am juggling right now. Look, running a startup company, you're juggling 20 things anyway, right? So your personal life is just one more thing that you need to juggle, and that's life. You know, as the number of balls that you need to juggle, I find as I get older, doesn't decrease; it actually increases over time. So you're gonna need to learn how to juggle, and it's an adaptation, and it's a lifelong process of adapting. You know, you learn, you grow. You level up, you skill up, right? You pick up new skills, you expand your network, you find people that are better at certain things than you are at, and you bring them in and make sure that they do a better job than you ever possibly could at, you know, finance or product or engineering, what have you. And that allows you to focus on other things, be it other parts of the business, your personal life. You are going to be involved in the company. Don't expect to hire people and then just, you know, be at the golf course at 3 in the afternoon. That's not going to happen. But it's a tightrope. You just got to learn how to balance both.
Well, maybe I'll add a little
Not a
bit
great
more
answer.
here.
it is.
I don't have a kid, but I do have pets, and then I try to maintain work-life balance. I think I do treat startup and entrepreneur as like a marathon, not a sprint. Yep. So when you're doing a marathon, you pace yourself. And then you just need to know it's almost like competing with your best time. And you just need to understand when to delegate, divide, and conquer. You can't do everything on your own. If it helps, I try to have one day out of a week that I stop looking at Slack. I tried, yeah, or not to turn on the computer.
But you need to know whether your company is in a marathon or in a sprint. You need to, some companies are in a marathon, some companies are in a sprint, right?
Yeah.
So I think, the company that you were in previously was very much a sprint.
We were sprinting, but we also realized that you cannot keep sprinting. People get burned out. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and actually, hear me add a little bit where we actually started as a part-time entrepreneur while having a full-time commitment. So in some way, this can be something a little bit more risk averse for some people as an approach, since you kind of still have your full-time gig. But unfortunately, to burst your bubble, work-life balance is not going to exist for a little bit. And yes, it is going to be a marathon, but I think the key learning here is, what is your capacity? How much can you tolerate? How much time do you give? Don't break yourself, but also know that you are taking on an additional initiative. The majority will fail that. So unfortunately, this is something, if it is something that you decided to commit to, it's going to be a tough journey. But if you ended up, doing something great, it will be, or if it failed, you will learn a lot from this experience. I mean, I have had hours that is till 2 or 3 a.m. every day for like a year straight. And that was the capacity I'm able to provide back then. May not be able to do it now, but understand your capacity and kind of work with that. I think work with that schedule will be kind of the more, I guess, the reality for me.
But do take care of yourself.
As a part-time entrepreneur.
Do take care of yourself. You are the most important person in your company, so make sure you're taking care of yourself, right? That's your health, your mental state, and whatever it is that you have in your personal life as well.
That's amazing. You guys, this 55 minutes has just gone flying by. I still have 1,000 questions to ask. Are we okay with questions from outside? Okay, I have one last one then for each of you. Again, we've got a lot of people online killing themselves this week to try and solve these amazing challenges that are genuinely right on top of people's agendas in our companies. So what advice would you give them? It's from your lessons you've learned over the years. And
This is an incredible opportunity, being able to access senior leaders that all want to champion something. So grasp the opportunity, work as hard as you can in this time that you have, meet as many people as you can, try and understand the problems that these people encounter in their day-to-day jobs. Don't expect there to be a quick result. Maybe there may be one, right? Maybe you'll land a POC that will stick in the next 2 months. Maybe it'll be more drawn out. Like for us, it took us a year before we actually, ultimately delivered, landed the POC. But it's an incredible opportunity. Cherish it and come away with an expanded network, with new skills, with new friends. Yeah, that's my tip.
awesome, fantastic.
I think just don't think that this is your last and only chance. Like while you're doing it, you should enjoy it, because this is the moment where you get to network with different people, try to learn from each other, and then try to get some learning experiences from it. Whether it's fruitful, it materialized or not, I always treat every single opportunity as the learning experience. You come out smarter, wiser, better, more equipped for future opportunities anyways. Yeah, so you should enjoy this and just treat it like a ride in an amusement park.
Awesome.
I think those are both great tips to think about how you approach the competition. As a ex-participant of HACK.ASIA, I may just give a bit of more, I guess, practical kind of tips here. One would be break down your problems. Think implementation and operations. Don't try to force everything into a giant idea that seems far away. Make sure that things that you're proposing is something that really addresses the problem. Maybe break down that key questions into different components and look at how you're approaching different components, making sure that they're actually impactful and implementable. Secondly, when you're presenting, slow down. Back then I see a lot of people really rushing their slide because they really want to present the most information to everybody, but that may not help you as much as you thought. Making sure your messaging is clear, making sure everybody understands what you're saying. I think that's very, very important as well.
You missed the most important thing, Peter, that I still remember to this day about your presentation, which was your amazing color scarf or shirt or whatever you had on. You wore a very dramatic one. It really stood out on the day, and you left an impression for sure.
Amazing.
But listen, it just leaves me to say a huge thank you to you guys for all that sharing. I think everybody here has learned an amazing amount in the last hour. And yeah, we're really indebted to you coming in, to sharing all of this great knowledge with people. From a Jardines perspective, we value these partnerships. We value your innovativeness and your ability to operate differently than we operate, and bring that that innovation with us so that we can together make things better for all the customers and consumers we serve across Asia. So needs me to say thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your wisdom.
Thank you.
So thank you, Brandon, Crystal, and Peter, for sharing your experiences as an entrepreneur. And I hope that you guys enjoyed your time here as well. So for a token of appreciation, we have provided some Mandarin Oriental vouchers for both of you, as well as you, Peter, over Zoom. We're going to send you an electronic version. We'll send it to you.
Thank you.
Whatever country you want to be in.
So should we get a photo? Yeah.
We should do one photo with you, Peter, and
Yep.
that fabulous jumper.
Yes.
Should I stand up? You're very tall. Great.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.